But by night, the sky gets blurred with the mountain. But during the day, you see that we live in a kind of a hole, a geographical hole, where the city spreads from north to south. This is a view from the north, and this is the view from the south. So you can see the different modes of urbanization that we face. We face this mode in top of the picture, which is with the highest level of income, and the one below, it's the lowest level of income. But the fact is that the lowest level of income, it's around 2,500,000 inhabitants in the city. So it means that it's much more than 3/4 of the population that doesn't have access to some of the most important structures for development. But so the areas that we place our operation have three conditions. There were almost no presence of the government, state offices, a social, economical regulator, or dynamizers. Most of these areas had no relation with surrounding neighborhoods and depended from the traditional center or from other neighborhood for any healthcare, leisure, or educational purpose. No social or economical investment was driven toward this neighborhood, making it fertile for illegal and parallel economies and services, all pumped up, of course, because of this drug illicit trade. So we're talking about these neighborhoods that are located in the north. You see the brown, it's where there is the poorest income. The light color will be the highest income, and the pink dot will be where all the disasters usually happen regarding to rain, heavy rain, and floods. So we are dealing with this kind of urban structure. This is the north neighborhood of Santo Domingo. And so you see the illegal settlement, how they grow up from the middle of the valley up to the mountain. So we have to create a model how to engage this urban structure and this social structure that it's placed in this place. So this is the opposite model. This is the neighborhood with the highest income. You see that it's only towers placing into the landscape. And this is negotiated by the traditional center, which is the grid, the urban grid, the traditional urban grid of most of Latin American cities. This is the geographical structure for the ravines. In the middle is the river, so all the ravines flow down to the river, creating a lot of current when there is the rainy season. So some of them have a slope even higher than 28%, so it has a lot of energy coming down the mountain. And so on some numbers, that this is where the paradox begins and everything turns to real things. The public facilities have been covered almost from 94%, almost from 20 years ago. I'm talking about sewage, water, gas, and energy. But this is a paradoxical fact, because what this happened was that even though there is a deficit of housing of around 45,000 houses, which means around 200,000 people that doesn't have a proper house, it means that this situation triggered a kind of a invasion, because every time somebody built a house in top of the mountain, they got almost immediately connected to the services. So somehow they were allowed to live there because they were just open the gas and they could cook with it. So it was this kind of being completely infrastructured in terms of energy, water, but no social infrastructure. So what we were doing in Medellin in the last 10 years is building social infrastructure for society to develop itself and to create a better future for them. So we have taken the risk to not propose our development based on giving a kind of a currency to the people, which is the houses. Once you give a house to someone, even though it's subsidized, you are placing money into their pockets. So they don't care if they have a house or not, but they don't have the opportunity to grow up accessing education, public space, and having the access to all this ecosystem that it's the public policies that deal with the city. So this is the homicide rate in Colombia. This was the peak in between 90 and 91, which is almost 7,000 people murdered because of this violence strategy created by Pablo Escobar. He even have a kind of a program that was called gun plan, which was that he will give $500 to everybody that came with a death cop to his door. So this incremented this kind of social deterioration that life was worthless. So many people in these neighborhoods, since they didn't have any infrastructure to develop themselves as educated people or to have access to a proper job, many run into this business. So they created a completely wave of violence and stress. You have to look at this peak again in 2010 because I will speak to it later. So this is where Colombia is, and this is all the migratory routes for birds, which is Colombia. It's a meeting point of geostrategic place, but at the same time, not only for birds, but this has also triggered this idea of Colombians exporting cocaine and illegal traffic, because it's very well located in the context of the articulation of Latin America and North America. And all this passes through Medellin. So what we were trying to do were very specific interventions, an interface to link and resolve political tools with social needs. This was materialized as strategic articulation between different disciplines, but it was not architecture, it was not either urbanism, it was most strict and traditional definition. So what we were trying to do was articulating a political will through the tools of architecture and urbanism combined together as a mixed-up discipline, trying to solve very, very precise projects, and through 8 precise strategies. We also imposed ourselves 8 self-imposed constraints. One was that no big-scale interventions were going to be made. This meant that projects were not linked to huge and big-scale processes and decisions that will eventually lead to long-term negotiations with traditional politicians or private interests. The second was no improvisations. Instead, strengthen and implement process design and planning, making bottom-up and top-down processes come together. No infrastructure-based projects. I'm talking about that we were not going to do roads or huge real estate operations, and avoid the budget distribution in the territory, because this was a political culture that it used to be in the city, which was that to divide the budget equally to all of the neighborhoods, no matter the plan. So, and also we were going to work with local talent and skilled professionals. So we deployed 8 strategies. The first one is zones in actions. This means that we were defining very strategic places of where to work at. This is the 5 most important plans that been made. I will refer mainly to Santo Domingo IUP, which means the Integral Urban Project, and I will also refer briefly to this one here, which is the 6th strategic zone that is called the New North. So what we were doing was working in frontier zones where things were going to change between the traditional settlements and all this invasion, where all the conflict was going on, all this porosity that links legality and illegality. This is the northern side of the city. This is where we were beginning to work, a place that was completely neglected, completely forgotten by all governors. Nobody really was putting a dime into it. So we were placing all these strategic processes. This is in La Quintana. This is another neighborhood where you see that you have these borders between ravines, urban settlements. So we were placing some urban infrastructures such as education facilities, libraries, schools, offices for economical development, healthcare centers, distributed in the territory. So the Santo Domingo IUP is the most interesting one. The IUP has been the most efficient operating instrument to design and coordinate complex and holistic operational processes. Inside these processes, almost all negotiations between defined local and community leaders and stakeholders have taken place. This is where everybody meet, and it has a very precise object and visible and verifiable objectives. It's not about sitting and talking. It's about placing very precise objectives, negotiating in a very rational way, articulating all the government offices into it, placing all the policies in the same bag, not distributing as it used to be before, but we were putting it inside the same bag, dealing with local initiatives. We were linking strategic processes. That meant that before, everybody got a kind of a same amount regarding of the population of the neighborhood, they got the same amount of the budget. What we did was to strategically define where the budget should go. This was a very brave political decision. And once we place this money with this budget, with these precise objectives in each one of these neighborhoods, then we were able to create and blur the boundaries between neighborhoods, creating a kind of a social, economical attractors. So these neighborhoods in itself open up to the rest of the city. At the same time, they became attractive for other members and other inhabitants of the city to go there. So it created a new urban dynamic that didn't exist before. This porosity and attraction led to different kind of enrichment, not only of the social culture that was going on in these neighborhoods, but to a more precise and more open social mixture of different social classes, because that was the segregation that was before. So this began to trigger new dynamics. So in this neighborhood, it's divided in, we divided in 3 periods of time, trying to understand what was there. We saw that this was this line that structured the main street. That's the street where the previous mayor before Fajardo, Sergio Fajardo, the one before, built the metro cable, which was a system that you will see it. You see also that this is the border of the city. Here it's the rural area. So it's a tension between rural and urban condition. So they built this metro cable here system, but they didn't bring all the link possibilities that this will have. So we wanted this intervention not only to be a kind of infrastructure for transportation, but we wanted people to get together. So we
Camilo, sorry to interrupt. We have just 5 minutes more left.
Yeah, we wanted to break this down. So we selected the places how to work. We capillarized the territory with different paths for people to meet. We created this new public space for people to not be afraid to meet each other. We linked strategic processes that it was able to create a transparent city. So someone could be in the public space playing football, but at the same time having a symbol of education, which is the library, and at the same time having the link with the metro cable. The public schools also created a new dynamic on the neighborhood, opening the space, creating a transparent city, so everybody could go to places that before were banned because of the violence. So people will go and migrate from one neighborhood to the other one to see it, to go to school, to receive some education. Also with this, sport facilities. Also, we decided that it had to be with the highest quality and beauty that could be achieved. So for the people with less income, it should be made with the highest quality and beauty. Also, all this quality of public spaces, small pools for the kids. And we were healing the neighborhood skin. We were changing all this surface. This was before, this is after. Making all the people resettle in the same community through very witty and intelligent plans of relocation in the same neighborhood. Like this, also like this. This was what used to be before, this is what is now. They painted the houses, they tear down the fences, and they opened to the public. The public space became a place to meet. This is the process of decision, how people met. We established bridges between communities that before were separated and segregated. They saw each other as enemies before because they didn't have any contact among them. This is the project that I was telling you about. These kind of bridges to put people together, and how to encourage people to make use of the public space as a social infrastructure for cultural and social development. I'm going to show you a very brief video of a project we did at the office to the New North. It's an orchid house. It's a place to exhibit flowers. So, yeah. It's a covered public space that articulates the Botanic Garden with all this public infrastructure that it's taking place in the New North, which is the place that the traditional city becomes the other part of the city that was neglected before. We have a very similar climate to springtime, like 23 degrees, very fresh air and a lot of nature. So this has become a place for everybody to meet, from music classes to yoga to bingo, fashion shows. People just go there and read, and it has also become the place where the book fair takes place every year, receiving more than 40,000 people daily for 7 days. I will move it a little bit forward so. It's just a cover space where air goes by and people come by, and it's open all year round, 24, almost 7 days a week and almost 12 hours daily.
Thank you, Camilo.
Thank you very much.
So
That's
sorry.
it.